We would like to acknowledge that the episodes in this series are produced on the traditional unceded lands of the Coast Salish peoples, which includes the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. We thank them for allowing us to be their guests.
Yep. So there you are. Yeah. So you guys are out in LA.
Out in LA.
And then you're thinking, okay.
Well, number one, I needed to get a job.
Yeah.
I was out of money, so I did. I went to UCLA and put in, they were looking for, I looked in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And UCLA was looking for assistants at the Graduate Business Administration School to work nights, keeping the computer alive for the professors who wanted to work.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I went in there. It was actually a huge operation.
Yeah.
They had the largest computer system in the U.S.
Wow.
and the first one that was on the intranet, I think it was, which was for military, and a lot of the professors there were doing military research and that.
Yeah.
And it was a good job because it was from 11 at night until 7 in the morning.
Yes, yeah.
And
quiet.
Quiet.
Yeah.
Usually the last professor
usually
was
by
there
yourself
by
too.
2.
Right? Yeah.
No, there was me and a supervisor
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
And so I had supervisor, and
Yeah.
he soon turned me on to the fact that really after 2, if we went to the first aid room, we could nap. And we had one morning where suddenly I was awakened by somebody shaking my shoulder. I realized it was only 6 o'clock, and it was the manager of the entire thing. And it was quite interesting because both Bill and I, we were both asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Got called before the head of the entire graduate business thing, who allowed us the privilege of resigning.
That's good.
As opposed
Nice
to getting
of
fired, because
Yeah.
if we'd have been fired, we'd never will be able to work for the state of California again.
them. Whoa, okay. Yeah.
So, and it was funny because within 3 weeks, the person who caught us and all of those had been fired from UCLA, and Bill, who had been my supervisor that was sleeping with, in the first aid room with me.
Yeah.
I was going to say sleeping with me, but that wasn't the case.
It's
but
okay.
but
It's okay.
anyway, he got hired on as the new manager for the entire thing.
Wow. Okay.
And
Wow.
hired a new crew. But it was totally bizarre. But my introduction into university politics.
Yeah. Right.
And the interesting thing about there is on the nights that I wasn't there, and before going there at 11 o'clock, I'd come into Westwood and we'd go to a club called the Rat Fucker, which was down on Westwood Boulevard,
Yeah.
and watch people breaking in as musicians,
Right.
like Gracie Slick.
Right.
Jim Morrison, who was a student there, he went to UCLA Film School and he
Yeah.
failed because he was always off with his van. And
Yeah.
the other guy was at that film school who didn't fail, he made it, but just was a Canadian named Don Shabib.
Yes. Right. Don Jabib. Mm-hmm.
Who,
Venerable name.
yes,
Canadian industry.
knew-
Yeah.
but he and Morrison were kind of the hippie shitbirds
Uh-huh. Yeah. Right.
of a rather serious film school.
Yeah.
And I kept putting in for parts as an actor in the student films
Uh-huh.
and at USC, and I never got one.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Because it was the 60s,
Yes.
and they were all interested in character-looking people.
Right.
I
okay.
was too straight.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
And,
yeah. You're leading man.
Well,
Material.
That's,
Yeah.
that's what I was. I like to
Yeah.
do character things.
Yes. Everybody does.
But
yeah.
I got shut down all the time,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
biker number 2 and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And no
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Please, I want to.
I want to be biker.
I want to grow my beard and be dirty. Nah.
No.
But, and they were making, that's the whole filmmaking thing too at UCL at that point was drop about 150 mics a window pane,
Uh-huh.
get the cameras out.
Yeah, just groove, man. Yeah.
But they also had a very serious contingent there too.
Yeah.
Guys like Colin Higgins,
I don't know.
who Harold and Maude,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
and
yeah.
Haskell Wexler,
Oh, yes, Haskell.
you know,
Yeah.
so
yeah.
they-
Splendid.
who had nothing to say for the Shabibs and Morrisons, but,
Yeah.
and they were the senior students and
Right.
the graduate students.
Right.
And,
What a fascinating time that would have been.
yeah. It
So what
was.
year are we talking about now?
That's,
Late 60s, early
that's-
70s?
That's 66 and 7,
Yeah, right.
because I got there in
Right.
66.
Right when things were starting to get kind of ugly too.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
You know, the strip was alive with stuff.
right. Yeah,
I was working too much to go there, and it was at night,
yeah,
so I kind of wound up in Westwood.
yeah.
Then I could walk right over and go to work.
So then, now what happens next is when does the MGM, when does that thing?
Well, that's another story. Dale Wilson, by that time, had broken up with his wife. They were pretty well on their way out,
Yeah,
as I realized when we went out there.
yeah,
And I had a place that I'd come up with. I was right at the beach, which was unbelievable.
yeah,
And he had a place he shared with a couple of other people in Beverly Glen, which
Okay.
was one of the in canyons for all the hippies. It was a cool place.
right.
A lot of guitar playing, a lot of folk music, a lot of dope smoking. And it was just down the canyon from the store where everybody came and hung out and
Yeah,
all of that kind of stuff. I'd managed to get an agent named Eloise Condit.
wow.
And this was the trouble out there. You went to get an agent, and they said, "Do you have a SAG card?" "No, I don't."
Yeah.
"Sorry."
Yeah.
You went to get a movie audition for anything, they said, "Do you have an agent and a SAG card?" "No, I don't."
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah,
So how do I get a SAG card? I went to SAG.
yeah,
You have to be cast in a feature film.
I know. It's catch-22. Yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway, so there was Eloise who had said, "Fuck all of that."
yeah,
She'd do what she could do. And she sent me out. I did some Japanese soft drink commercials, which we shot in San Francisco during the winter. Oh, me diving off a
They fly
sailboat
you up
over and
there?
over. Huh?
They
Yep,
fly you
flew
up
us
there, put
there,
you up the
did
whole
that.
bit, yeah.
Paid us very little,
yeah,
but it was interesting. I did a commercial for one of the first ever Hondas.
uh-huh.
It had a motorcycle engine, it had a plastic trunk and a plastic hood. The wheels were about this big. and me and this good-looking young lady drove it around a bit in Griffith Park.
Oh, yes.
In LA.
Right, yeah.
I thought nobody would ever buy this car.
This
You know,
never worked.
Honda,
never worked.
good
Sorry.
luck, folks.
Yeah,
Good luck, folks. So I managed to make a few dollars off that
yeah,
after I was let go from UCLA.
yeah,
And anyway, Dale had come back. He'd gotten a place to live up there in
yeah,
Beverly Glen. And we would go out on auditions. Well, we had gone out on 2 or 3 auditions for horrible films that were never going to take us and probably never would have paid us.
yeah.
We went to audition for several of these plays that they had. The thing you would
99 seat plays.
do, yep,
Yeah.
you would, or 31 seats. in a
Equity
church
showcase
basement.
play or whatever.
Yeah, they were showcases.
Yeah.
Some of them wanted money to be in them
Right.
because
Right.
they had these new boutique agents who would come and watch and try to get some people.
Right.
So the game was you had to be in enough of these plays until some boutique agent decided to take a chance on you with no SAG card
Yeah. Yeah.
and develop you. Well, these were pretty horrific, most of them.
Yeah. And everybody is, in those plays, everybody is kind of vying for
Yeah.
being in the front.
There's no cohesion,
Yeah,
no
yeah,
real
yeah.
directors,
Yeah.
and a lot of other stuff. Anyway,
Yeah.
So Dale and I were pretty disgusted by Friday. We went back to his place at Beverly Glen. We pooled our money. We ordered pizzas, a couple of gallons of Red Mountain, and the phone rings. And I pick it up, and it's Eloise. And she says they're auditioning for a whole bunch of actors at MGM for a big, huge movie called Ice Station Zebra. And they're looking for people with ex-military. So I said, oh.
Ding.
So went outside, jumped on my motorcycle. Dale jumped on the back. There was a little driveway about 30 feet long from the house to Beverly Glen. Pulled down to the Glen, looked both ways, and the bike got lighter. Dale got off. And I said, what are you doing? Yeah, we've been to all these auditions this week. He said, we're going to go to this fucking thing. We'll be there for several hours. We won't get anything. We'll come back. The beer, the pizza will be gone. Fuck it. And he turned and he walked back into the house. And I sat there thinking he's right.
Yeah.
But it's 20 minutes to MGM. He's right. Well, I'll go and just
See.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
So wham, whipped down there, parked, went in, couple of guys waiting there. They went in, came out, both left. So the guy, okay, you're next. And I went in and he said, you know, have you been in the military? Oh yeah, I was in the Marine Corps, da-da-da-da. Kind of looked at myself and looked at my picture, and he said, guy had long hair. He said, you get your hair cut? And I said,
Sure.
yeah, no problem. You know, I don't know. He said, okay, go over there and wait in that room. So I go over to wait in the room, and it's packed.
Uh-huh.
There's like 50 or 60 people in there ahead of me.
Right.
And there's not even a place to sit. Some of them are sitting down along the walls, others are standing along the outside walls. And I thought, that's it, Wilson's right.
Damn.
So
No pizza for me.
I walked back out, jumped on my bike. I'm about to put my helmet on, and it's like a little voice goes, well.
Yeah.
So anyway, I put my helmet back on, and when I went back in the building, this guy who I later learned was Ron Bruno, is coming out and letting another person go.
Right.
And so I went over and I said, Mr. Bruno, I might have an audition for a theater thing tonight. And if I'm waiting here, I can't go to that. Is there any way I can get seen early?
There you go.
And he went, well, I think so. He said, just go through that door, you'll be in the lot. Ask for one of the golf carts, and then have them take you to Soundstage 14.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, through the door. There's two guys with these golf carts sitting around doing nothing. And one sees me come out and immediately drives over, says, where do you need to go? So I said, Soundstage 14.
14, buddy, and step on it.
Yeah, so anyway, I get in there. They take me to Soundstage 14, and all the doors are open, and there's sets in there. And in the doorway is this double table like I got down below here, you know, one of those folding tables. And sitting at one place with literally 6 phones around him and 6 women handing him telephones is John Sturgis, director of The Magnificent Seven,
Yes,
The Great Escape.
right.
And I go, oh, wow, this is really interesting. And this guy comes over and introduces himself as Art. Says, are you the guy that they just sent down from casting? And I said, yeah. He said, well, they're not supposed to do that, but you're here. So he had called, he had phoned and told them he's sending somebody down. So he asked me a few questions. He said, are you afraid of the water? Have you been in the military? Da-da-da. And I later learned he was a second AD, but he was just Art. So I said, all the things right, I guess. And he said, okay. And he gives me this side of script, and he says, that's your lines.
Yeah.
So I look at there, and somebody else says, where's Zabrinsky and Midgang? And I go, they're at the ship, sir. And then they go, and where are they going to go? I said, oh, they should be back any minute. So anyway, that was my 2 lines.
You can do that, yeah.
So Art takes me, and I stand right in front of John Sturgis.
Yeah.
And Sturgis is like, yeah, and give me 2 of those. Well, if that doesn't work, then give me one of that. Jesus Christ. Give me what? What? Oh, yeah, okay. Jeez. Yeah, they got that. Well, tell them they gotta come up with it by tomorrow, whatever. He's I'm ad-libbing, but he's just going through what seems like a whole bunch of problems that he doesn't want to hear about. And all of a sudden he looks at me and he says, where's Sabrinsky and Midgang? I went, they're back at the ship, sir. And he looked over at this guy who was standing there and he said, yeah, he can talk. God damn it. Why don't they? And that was it. I didn't even get my second line.
I can do it better.
So then this guy introduces himself. I'm Tommy. And he said, and I'm like, oh.
Now what?
And he goes, don't get too excited. You've still got to pass the military. We have a military advisor, and you've got to pass his test. So I'm thinking, okay, well.
Kick his ass.
One more thing. So I go over, and this guy's sitting there, and he's got an AR-15.
Yeah.
Which I had never seen either.
Yeah.
And Tommy on the way over says he's going to give you a rifle. You have to field strip it and put it back together.
I said, whoa, hold on.
And I'm thinking, well, okay.
How hard can it be?
You know, it's 3 basic pieces no matter which way you look at it, I guess. So the guy gets up and there's Mike Marriott and Ty Haller. And Marriott looks at me and he says, yeah. He said, you ever been in the service? And I said, nope. And I said, I was a U.S. Marine. Which is the Marine answer.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And he goes, Jesus, all these other guys are doggies and swabbies. I'm a Marine sergeant. He said, looks at Tommy, he says, finally, you've brought a fucking Marine. I don't have to have him take this rifle apart. He could do it in his sleep. And Tommy goes, okay. And he gives me back to Art. And Art takes me over into this next building, which is wardrobe, hair, makeup. First thing they do is sit me down, and the barber, away goes the hair. Not as bad as they did in the military by any means, but
never in the movies,
short haircut. Yeah. So anyway, I leave the door, and the guy on the door, I said, what do I do now? He said, go home, I guess. So I walk out. I'm walking along the parking lot back toward the main gate because there's no more little golf carts running around. I'm passing all the parking places, and it's Paul Newman, Frank Sinatra, Bruce Lee, Clint Eastwood. Yeah. I'm going, I'm in here.
Yeah.
I stood out there a whole bunch of times, but I'm in here. So I finally get to the gate, and there's a guard on the gate. And I said, yeah, my name's Ty Haller, and okay, Haller, and there's another guy sitting there. I said, Ty Haller. And this guy comes over and he goes, okay, this is your ID card. Yeah. This is your thing, and you have to sign this contract. And so I spent about 10 or 15 minutes there signing the contract and doing all that.
So that was your contract with
MGM.
Yeah.
So I go out and I get on my motorcycle, and everything's very quiet now. And it's about, by now it's like 10:30. And I go back, and sure enough, I get back to Beverly Glen. And I walk in, no pizza, no dope, no wine, nothing. I don't care.
Yeah.
It wasn't until about 4 or 5 days later that Art came up to me, and he said, we got a problem here with your contract and everything. He said, you didn't give us your SAG number. And I said,
you said SAG?
I said, I'm not a SAG member. He went, you're kidding. And it turned out that this Ron Bruno, that was his first casting job for extras.
Right.
And he had forgotten to ask me if I was SAG.
Right.
And So I said, no, I'm not. And of course, I've been shot and everything else by then, right?
Yeah, so
I mean, not with a gun, but
yeah, they'd
with
call up and,
yeah.
yeah.
So he said, okay. He said, do you have anything against being SAG? And I said, no, not at all. And he said, then do you need money to join? And I said, no, I didn't. I actually,
Yeah.
I knew it was 200 and I knew I had about 230 bucks.
Right.
So I said, no. And he said, okay. He said, jump on your motorcycle. We're about to go to lunch. You're not going to be in this next shot before lunch, but if you go over there right now, go there. And I forget who he said to ask for.
Yeah.
But anyway, I went over there and asked for her. She thought it was very funny. Took my 200 bucks, gave me a SAG card. Being everything worked out okay, everybody was amused by that. But for a moment there, they weren't amused.
Then, okay, so now you're an MGM contract player.
Yep.
You're on Ice Station Zebra. You're in, how long was that?
Wound up 7 months. 7 months. Ice Station Zebra, we did a bunch of shooting on the lot.
Yeah.
And then we had 3 weeks of shooting to do in San Diego at the Navy Yard.
Yeah.
And the Navy turned around and took offense to the script.
Oh.
MGM went ahead and flew us all to San Diego,
Yeah.
put us up in the motel down there. And then on Monday morning, they said,
No?
no work. The Navy has shut us down.
Wow.
So the writers went to work
Yeah.
on the script. Yeah, that plane's going to be here
That's
forever.
okay. That's right.
The
They're
writers
always there. Yeah.
went to work on the script with the Navy, and I spent 3 weeks in the motel in San Diego,
Just hanging out.
just hanging out.
Yeah,
Patrick McGowan was on the film, and he and I were both into science fiction,
Right.
big time. He was about to do The Prisoner,
Oh, yes.
so
right.
he's reading all kind of stuff, and I turned him on to Harlan Ellison, who was one of my favorite writers.
Yeah.
And so we hung out a bit, and I hung out with the other guys.
Yeah.
And then finally they said, okay, now the Navy's ready, and we went to work and did 3 more weeks
Wow.
in San Diego shooting the
So
original.
by now you're buying pizza for everybody.
I thought, because I knew some people who had contracts at Universal and they made $175 a week,
Mm-hmm.
which I was quite
Thrilled
happy,
to get,
quite
yes, right.
happy, thrilled
Yeah.
to get. And then when I went in to sign my contract, they said, this is actually a contract actor / stunts. So you have to do falls, you have to do things like go in the water, blah, 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 blah. And it was $400 a week.
Fortune.
And I went,
Yeah.
yeah, that's I forgot to tell you
Yeah.
that. At the gate, I was expecting, well, I get 175, and
Yeah.
it was 400, and I was freaked. I was like,
What will I do? I have tax problems.
yeah, I didn't even think of taxes. It's too bad, but I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they deducted at source,
Right.
so I was lucky.
Yeah.
So I think I got about 250 of that every week.
Yeah.
And of course, I squirreled it away to pay for my building career.
Yeah. Yeah.
Squirreled it away by flying with a date to New York to see a friend's play open and staying at a nice hotel. And well,
That's okay.
it was a
That's
7-year
okay.
contract.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
A
That's
7-year
okay.
contract.
Yeah.
Little did I take to figure out that that was 7 years on my side.
Yeah. And cancelable at any
and
time.
cancelable if MGM had some kind of disaster,
Yeah.
which MGM quickly did.
Yeah, they did. They went. Who was
They
that
came
guy?
out
That
with-
famous guy that bought them, or they went
Yep.
bankrupt or something,
Yeah.
right?
They came out by the time my contract, we were at the end of the 7 months,
Mm-hmm.
MGM had gone totally broke.
Wow.
They had released Shoes of the Fisherman,
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
which was a total disaster.
Yeah,
They had released Ice Station Zebra,
yeah.
which tanked big time, even though it was CinemaScope. I went to the opening. It was incredible. But it wasn't a great script.
Yeah.
And the Navy had hacked it apart, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it was a bomb, and so MGM had done what they always did when they had a problem. They pulled out either Gone with the Wind or Ben-Hur,
Yeah.
pumped $10 million into advertising and released it, and all the new, younger people came to see this famous classic movie,
Yeah.
and they made out, well, this was the 60s.
Yeah.
And the younger people could care less about those two movies.
Charlton Heston.
And they went,
Yeah.
stayed out about a week and died,
Yeah.
and MGM was broke. So yeah, I came in on Thursday to get paid because I wasn't cast in anything during that week. And everybody was there. All 26 contract actors were outside that famous gate, because the gate, you really did everything at that gate.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, they had a meeting or something, and I didn't know. And
Yeah.
this may be a problem? And they all had pink slips. We'd been given 2 weeks
Wow.
our notice. And of course, then it kicks in, let's save money.
Right.
So we took that paycheck and went right over to the Star Cafe and drank and ate and cried and commiserated and blew about $100 each just being stupid.
Yeah. Sure. Of course.
And promising to, you know, swapping all our names with each other and phone numbers. And none of that came to fruition at all.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I came up here fairly soon after that.
Yeah.
I came up here. I actually immigrated into Toronto
Uh-huh.
on July 4th, 1969.
Okay.
So, and my friend Herbie Fisher said, you know, he had just come from Toronto, and he said, Toronto is hot, you should go back there, because by going there, you'll get some parts in film.
Okay.
And I wasn't getting any parts in film. Anyway, so I thought I'd try that. So I went to Toronto and got my work papers, and that's where I got Flick. So that was the first Toronto Canadian telefilm, which was then called the Canadian Film Development Corporation.
Yes, right.
So I did. I got a lead in a movie.
Yeah.
I
Great.
played the Frankenstein monster. There was Frankenstein, which Robin Ward played.
Yes, I
and
know
a
Robin.
woman
Yeah, I did
named
a
Kathy Sawyer,
Yeah.
who I've never heard of again. That's the only movie she ever did.
yeah.
Who played the girlfriend.
Okay.
And then me, who played Tony Bales, who Robin Ward turns into the Frankenstein monster.
We'll have to look that one up.
I think it was retitled Frankenstein on Campus, but they called it
That
Flick.
sounds great. That's a great
That
title.
was directed by Gil Taylor and produced by Bill Marshall, who were
Bill Marshall, yes.
who were
Right.
the managers of a successful band in Canada called Lighthouse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the reason they got the picture was that Lighthouse did 2 concerts in the movie.
Yes. Sure.
And of course, as you know, as a writer, which kills the movie dead still. The other thing was, it was 1969.
Mm-hmm.
That was the year of no bras and see-through blouses.
Yes, of course.
And
yes.
they cast all of the women
Yeah.
with that in mind.
Yes.
And so it became a fairly successful film on the college circuit when you still rented films
Yes.
because of those 2 factors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Victor Frankenstein, expelled from Ingolstadt U for doing weird experiments for acting a bit loony, goes to college in Canada to study brain control under Professor Preston. Campus radicals frame Victor, photographed holding a joint, in an attempt to discredit both Preston and the dean, and Victor is once again expelled. Vic injects Taekwondo expert Tony with his new brain control pellets, and soon Tony becomes an instrument of revenge, beating radicals to death, drowning the photographer in a developing trade, and karate chop him a reporter in the throat, to name a few, but why won't Victor remove his clothes when doing his often naked girlfriend, and who is the real Frankenstein? That is the plot summary that we have.
It's Linda Beath, who ran New World Cinema.
Linda, I remember that name
She
too.
put
yeah.
it. She put it out as perhaps the worst movie ever made in Canada, and it was a hit with college.
No, I was in the worst.
Your face is not on here. I'm sorry to say,
You're
Ty.
kidding.
Your name is here, but you haven't included your photo. We've got Robin Ward as
Yes.
Victor Frankenstein, Austin Willis.
Austin Willis.
Austin Willis,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was a professor.
Yeah.
I killed him
It
by
was-
running
We
I killed-
both worked with Austin Willis.
I killed him by running an umbrella through his head, through his eye. I knock him down and then I grab his umbrella. And, yeah. And at the end, I threw Robin Ward off the top of the Royal Ontario Museum.
Wow, gothic, eh? Really kind of.
And
There you go.
the ending shot in the film is, you see him fall and hit the cement and everything. And then you close in on him,
Yeah.
and he now appears to be a robot. And these feet walk by with another control like he had.
Ah.
And they wrote that in there at the end of the movie. They wrote that was post shooting the movie or whatever, because they were that time pretty desperate to have something that.
Oh.
It was written by the sports writer from the Toronto Star. Quite funny.
Well, jeez. Okay, so you do that. You're in Toronto now.
Yeah.
Hanging out there. When did you come out here?
June of 1970.
June of 70.
Yeah.
Right.
I went to the screening of that movie when it opened. Me and a couple of other actors, because it was winter when it screened.
Yeah.
And so we had these big winter coats that were up and our hats on, sitting in the back going, oh my God, I'll never work again with this. But I did. I did a couple of TV shows there.
Yeah.
And again, a bunch of commercials.
Yes, right.
One of them turned out to be a Herbie the Love Bug commercial,
Right.
the Volkswagen.
Yeah.
And at the end of that commercial, the guy from Volkswagen said, yeah, you drove this really well. You ought to buy this car. And so we got together and I did. I took all the silly decals off it and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had this brand new 69 Volkswagen.
Okay.
And springtime came in, and then I went back to California. I jumped in that and
Yeah.
drove back to L.A. I went back to my agent who I'd left,
Mm-hmm.
who was very unhappy. So that was gone.
Yeah.
I hung out with some actors for a little bit. Dale had already come up here to dodge the draft.
Right. Okay.
They drafted him, and he immediately had driven to Vancouver.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'll go to Vancouver and visit Dale.
Right.
So I jumped. I actually, while I was there, I re-met up with Steve Spielberg, who I had done a film with. He had not done Jaws or anything like that yet.
Yeah.
But he'd gotten a contract at Universal after doing Amblin.
Right.
And so I went over and had a bite to eat with him
Mhm.
and Denny Doherty from the Mamas and Papas.
Okay.
Anyway, I gave him a ride home to a place he was sharing with some other people that night, and
Mm-hmm.
then decided to come up to Vancouver. So I rolled in here.
Here you are.
Rolled in here in June. That's how I got here.
Yeah.
Came rolling into town. The headline in the paper was this.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. And this was the brand new hydro tower at Burrard and
Yes.
Nelson.
Yeah. Right.
This was Hotel Vancouver, all of this downtown.
Yeah.
And these were all buildings, but it was this cement
Yes. Right.
downtown structure giving the finger.
Yeah.
People were furious
Yeah.
that they had built 16 stories,
Yeah.
that they had been allowed to build a building taller than the Hotel Vancouver was
Yeah.
then I thought, well, they got a sense of humor here. But anyway, and Dale at that time was living with Kathy Payne down here at Trutchen First, nice place.
Uh-huh.
And they were singing every night and running a place called the Gastown Saloon down in Gastown.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was actually being kind of sub-run by the guy who had a place called the Classical Joint.
Yes, right.
Andreas, I think his name was.
Yeah.
So that was, and so I went to work there. I became the doorman, played guitar and sang, and smoked a lot of weed, had a very good time. And I finally went over and looked into the CBC
Right.
because I had my Canadian stuff from Toronto,
Yes, right. Yeah.
and I had done
No,
some.
no,
I
no
had,
need to get a SAG card.
I had done, yeah, I'd done some shows for the CBC back there,
Yeah.
and a guy named Don Eccleston was there,
Gee, I think I remember
and
that name
he
too,
hired me
yeah.
to do a show in the Beachcombers.
Yeah.
So I did the Beachcombers, and then there was a guy named Mark Strange.
I know.
who
I
had written
remember Mark
about-
very well. Yeah.
And he was doing a show about a truant officer,
yeah,
which I can't remember the name right now.
it wasn't
It
the
would come to-
manipulators or the.
I think it was something like it was the Manipulators. I
the
think.
manipulators. There were two of them, right, kind of back to back. There was
I
the
think it was.
manipulators and something else. It's-
Anyway, he
yeah,
was
yeah.
starring in that,
Yes. Yes.
and he wanted to direct. So for some reason, he tagged me
Yeah.
as his stand-in,
Right.
and I had to learn the lines.
Yes, and be a real stand-in.
And
yeah.
I would play the scene right up until the actual shot as him.
Yes. Right.
And then he would step in
Yeah.
and be him for the actual takes.
Yeah.
And I did that for a while, and it was,
Yeah.
again, some nice bread and
Yeah. And actually pretty good education to being a
Yep.
stand-in. Stand-in
Yeah,
is,
it was.
is a really,
It
actually
was.
cool job.
it was pretty
A
cool.
hard job, not an easy job, but,
And,
yeah.
And from actually doing that student film with Spielberg,
Mhm.
I had some terminology down in LA, but when I came from doing that one was actually where I really started paying attention and learning what the ADs did, which
Right.
AD did.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing with Spielberg, I was kind of the AD driver, stand-in,
Everything. Yeah.
Everything,
Yeah,
you know.
student film. Yeah.
mainly
Yeah.
helping him get things together. you know.
Yeah.
So,
So by now, okay, so
So-
I don't know when it was. I remember being on one of the sets with Mark Strange. I can't remember what I was doing. I must have been doing something very small. I don't think I've got a credit for it on IMDb or anything, but I remember that very well. And I remember one of them, wasn't Jace Vanderveen?
oh yeah, I remember Jason.
in one of those series or something had a kind of recurring part or something in one of those. What the hell was that? And I know and his daughter Sarah, was on Da Vinci's for a long
Oh,
time.
really?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a regular on Da Vinci's for
Oh,
the
wow.
whole series. I
I
think.
didn't know that.
Yeah, and he wrote books too. I think Mark did.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and he
Yeah.
wrote great songs, played a
Yeah.
great guitar.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
he lived right over here somewhere.
yeah.
I think actually it was between Broadway and
We're at
4th.
12th and Collingwood now, basically,
Yeah.
more or less.
I forget.
So that's the neighborhood we're in for
And
Vancouver people.
We'd
Yeah.
go over there and
Yeah.
smoke dope and play
Hang out
guitar,
and make music.
sing songs, and then he would always, not always, but almost always go, gotta do it, and he cooked the greatest souffles.
Wow.
So we'd sit around doing something else, and Mark would cook these incredible souffles.
Wow.
Especially when you're smoking.
Yeah, they're
We
get
just
more
chow
incredible.
down,
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
he was a great guy.
Yeah.
I don't know why we hit it off. But,
Yeah.
and
So-
of course, from he and Susan, his wife,
Uh-huh.
wrote The Beachcombers.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so now you're a working actor in Vancouver and a behind the scenes guy too, right?
Yeah. Totally bizarre.
Yeah.
I met Jack Darkus,
Yes.
and he was cutting a film called Proxy Hawks,
Right.
which was his second film, just right up here on 16th
Uh-huh.
in a studio. And for some reason, I went to visit him there and talked with him, and he was coming up with this. He had written this film called The Wolfpin Principle.
Right.
So he wanted me to be the AD.
Right.
And I told him about the student film with Spielberg and some other little kind of crew things I'd done. Really, the truth was I didn't know squat except what I thought I knew.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Found that out right
But
away.
you're young, right?
But anyway, I got together with Scotty Maitland,
Yes. Mhm.
who I had known from Toronto and
Yeah.
was now ADing, and broke it down, boarded it out, and became the first AD. And so my first real behind the camera experience for a paycheck was as a first AD. And
Pretty big jump, actually. Yeah.
it's a pretty big jump.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
right
the-
in the thick of it. That's
Oh,
great.
the day one
Yeah.
of shooting was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
The end of the movie is Vladimir Valenta, who played the lead, and Lawrence Brown. Valenta had made himself a name in Czechoslovakia doing closely watched trains.
Oh yes. Right.
And he's
right.
this big,
Great
huge
classic movie,
hunk
yeah.
of a guy,
Mhm.
bald older guy,
Yeah.
very sad case. But that was his shtick, and that's
Yeah.
what he was doing
Yeah.
in this. And it was him and Lawrence Brown, who was a young native guy, and they're just walking off across the snowfield. So we booked Whistler,
Right.
and we had helicopters to take us up. And anyway, there was our little fleet of 8 trucks
Yeah.
left here on the morning. We went up to Whistler, and it was April, so the snow was up there.
Yeah.
And there was only Creekside. There was no Blackcomb, Whistler. None of that existed.
Yeah.
And there was a chairlift that went up, but it didn't go far enough up. So there I am with the crew, and I'm putting them through, and the helicopter pilots are giving us the lecture.
Yeah.
You know, we got these 2 helicopters. You never walk toward the rear. You don't do this. And the crew is all listening, and we
Yeah.
got our boxes of equipment there. And all of a sudden, there's a phone call, and it's a fire, a forest fire.
Whoa.
And the pilot says, sorry,
We
these
got-
things take precedence. And so we're all standing there, and the helicopters
Just leave.
put their buckets on, and away they go.
Yeah. Right.
So we go into the one little, there was only one restaurant tavern there at the bottom of the Creekside Run. And of course, it's phones in those days.
Yeah.
So I go to the payphone and I call Werner Allen, who's down here in
Yes.
Vancouver.
Yes.
He was the producer. It's his first
La
film as a
raclette.
producer. And I tell him, the helicopters have gone. We're down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh my God, do something. Get out there. Tell them who. I'm going, can't do anything. It's a forest fire. They have to go fight the fire. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
give me a break. Well, no, you're the AD. You're supposed to know what, you know. I'm coming up there. I'm coming up there right now.
Okay.
Okay. And we wait for about an hour and a half. The
Yeah.
helicopters come back. And so they load all of our stuff in, and we had to take 4 trips, 2 helicopters,
Right.
boxes and everybody. We get up there, and as we're getting up there, it's getting foggier.
Right.
And as we unload the last helicopter, that cloud parks, and I couldn't see Susie.
Wow.
You know, and we're sitting on the metal cases and stuff,
Yeah.
smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee,
Yeah.
and going, what are we going to do? And there ain't nothing to do because the helicopters can't even come back up.
Yeah.
Luckily, we got good warm stuff, and we got plenty of coffee. Werner's now down at the bottom, I guess, but of course I got no phone. We didn't have phones then.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, there we are sitting there in the fog. And I'd say an hour went by.
Yeah.
Finally, the fog lifts.
Yeah.
God, we can see around. And people are unpacking cases and, kind of. And I'm thinking, well, why isn't anybody, getting this scene set up and rehearsing or doing? And then I realized,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
it's me.
Yeah, right.
So I tell the crew, okay, we're going to do it now.
Yeah,
We're at work.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we can't really block it because we don't want any footprints. We don't want
Yes, on the
birds
snow.
and
Yeah,
snow
yeah.
going on. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's going to work and it's all safe. And we got the guy from the park with us and everything. And finally we get there and we're ready to shoot. And I get up there and I go, okay, let's everybody be quiet, which wasn't a big deal because we got that. And roll camera. And way over there, I see Zale Dallin, who is the sound mixer.
Yes, right.
And he stands up and he takes his headphones off. And he says, no, Ty, you roll sound first.
Yes, right. Yeah.
When the sound is running so that I can record sound, I will say speed. Then you can say roll camera.
Yeah, right.
And he puts his headphones on and he sits back down. And I go,
Roll sound.
okay.
Roll sound.
Roll sound.
Zale, roll sound.
And
Yeah.
anyway,
There you go.
Zale was kind of the one with the most credits
Yeah.
and stuff of anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we get the shot. So we come down off the mountain, and Werner Allen,
Yeah.
and did you get anything? And I, oh yeah, we got the shot, we're cool.
Tell me how you got into the teaching part. Sort of how did that begin for you?
Well, the teaching, I used to go down to Granville Island in the morning. I was single then and living up in the park, and so I'd go to the island, and I knew Robert
Right.
Giroux, who had the Blue Parrot,
Okay, yes.
and I had helped him with some writing stuff that he was doing.
Uh-huh.
And then he got a fringe project that he had written. It was on Vietnam, so I helped him with the military kind of stuff that he needed to put in there for
Right.
that. Jack Darkus wound up directing it for him in the fringe, and I
Right.
played one of the soldiers.
Right.
So from then on, I got free coffee and whatever at the Blue Parrot.
Right.
And Gary Chalk
Yes. Yes.
was also in there.
Yeah.
And Gary would come in and he'd have stuff he was into and about. And so Gary came in one day and he said, Jason, I got this new school called the Vancouver Film School.
Yeah.
He said, another one of those goddamn rip-offs. They
Yeah.
come in and they're supposed to teach shit and they don't, and they,
Yeah.
And he said, the union should be on that. We should be on shutting people like that down.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, let's go pay him a visit, like we're going to be students.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So we jump in his car. We go over to the Hamilton Street, which is where they were starting.
Yeah.
And we say, we want to see what this is about and maybe sign up. And of course they, oh yeah, welcome in.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So we go in and sit down with the owners. And it turns out Gary knows one of them. It's a guy he knows, Richard Appleby.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I go, oh, Richard, you're doing this, and geez, they talk about things, and
Yeah.
so we wind up having a chat instead of,
A rant. Yeah. Yeah.
instead of getting information to take to the union and
Yeah,
get
yeah.
them shut down. And it turns out Dave Hardy is the head instructor, who is a guy that I know,
Mm-hmm.
who, well, he's pretty mellow, but I had taken his little 8mm film school.
Mm-hmm.
And we did shoot a little film and edit it, and, it was... And they were looking for somebody to do a night screenwriting class.
Right. Yes.
So I thought, well, that might be a trip, and I'm not very busy these days. And so I said, sure, and we agreed on a price, which wasn't a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it was only one night a week for 3 hours.
Sure. Right.
And so that's how I wound up teaching screenwriting.
Yeah.
I actually came in and put together a course on what characters you need and what to do, and
Yeah.
came in on night one.
You've got a natural bent for that.
There was
You're really good at that. I know this from
Yeah.
personal experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was
Yeah.
a class going on, and I came in and sat down for my 3-hour class.
Yeah.
Somewhere about 20 minutes in, I realized I've pretty well covered all my material. So I thought, okay, so I'll get you all to actually write something right now. It's important. So I learned about, let's have some exercises.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And that first class was, yeah, I feel like I should bring all of those people back and apologize, because it was.
And then that program also was like, you go out and you do the script, but you also kind of make the movie and all that.
No, this was just a writing. This was
Yeah.
a night writing course.
Yeah.
But the daytime one was.
Yes. Right.
And at the end of my second one, I
Yeah.
did another one, and I was much better prepared.
Yeah.
Actually, had come in with pretty good organized little course.
Yeah.
And we got near the end of it, and they're going, oh, and if there was a shoot or something we could see where it's done on. And the guy who was a second camera assistant teaching camera, he said, yeah, I give them all these lectures on things, and then there's never anything to shoot,
Yeah.
so they don't get to really feel it. And so riding home that night, I heard a cowboy song,
Mm-hmm.
and I sat down and wrote a 5-minute script called The Choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I took it to the owners, and I said, this at the end of your program for all these night courses, the directors could split it up into 4 different things and have something to direct.
Yes. Right.
The camera guys could have a DOP for each of these 4 sections.
Yeah.
And my writers could be there to do script.
Right.
And it's something they've been involved in a bit, though I really just sat down and wrote it myself because I didn't have time
Yeah.
to do anything. And so they threw some money in,
Yeah.
and we did this little shoot, and we used the daytime students as actors.
Right.
5 or 6 guys in the daytime became the actors.
Right.
And they went back and said to Dave Hardy, man, we need to do something like this, an instructor shoot.
Right.
So then they came to me and said, could you do this in the daytime? So then I expanded that to a 10-minute script,
Mm-hmm.
embellished everything, put in more,
Yeah.
built it into
Yeah.
a pretty nice little machine to teach students to
To actually do it.
actually film.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the way it all.
And it was
should be.
something that
Yeah.
wasn't precious, so
Yeah. Yeah.
they could do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
And that led to me teaching in the daytime a course of how to be an AD, because there was no AD course.
Right. Right.
And then I came in one morning right after that, and there was Dave Hardy standing out front of the school, and he's watching ants go in and out of the sidewalk. I said, Dave,
What are you doing?
what's up? He said, I just quit. James wants to talk to you. So I went up and I think what happened to Dave, he was a nice man. He had gone to the London Film School in
Yes.
London, England.
Right.
Spent quite a bit of time there. They operate totally different.
Yeah.
In the London Film School, you book in, you pay,
Yeah.
you get a whole wad of film school money.
Uh-huh.
And as far as doing projects, you hire your crew with film school money,
Right.
and you can take as long as you want.
Right. Right.
You went, I think Dave went there 3 years or something
Right.
to do a course that he could have done in 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, that speed didn't work in the van. he expected there'd be 15 students or so, and he'd have a year to teach them.
No.
And of course, they kept filling right up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
by this time, they were on class 5, and they had 100 and some students there.
Yeah.
And the course wasn't moving along, and they were going, what the hell's happening?
Yeah.
And they all liked my AD course,
Yeah.
because that had been something they threw at them to make them happy, and
Yeah.
it did work. And they liked the idea of the instructor shoot.
Yeah.
So James said, can you be the new head instructor? And I said,
Yeah.
no. I said, I don't think I'd like to teach that subject, number one. But, so I could see it as a bunch of work. So I said, here's how much I would make as a second AD
Yeah.
if I worked all year.
Yeah.
If you're willing to pay me that,
Yeah.
we'll give it a shot. And so they agreed to that.
Uh-huh.
Understand that.
And then how long did that last, and when did you go to CAP?
I spent, that was a kind of a 5-year verbal agreement.
Uh-huh.
And so I spent that 5 years there, and then they brought in a management team.
Right.
And the management team immediately went, what are you paying these people? Now, the money was coming in hand over fist because
Yeah.
classes were selling out.
Yeah, yeah, and it's always been a pricey place
Well,
to go.
they
yeah.
weren't too bad when it started
Yeah,
out,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they were building it.
Yeah.
And they said, well, what do you mean? They said, well, that's, because they're film people, and they all were. I had all film professionals
Right.
working there, and I was paying $60 an hour for instructors.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought my deal was pay them well.
Yeah.
They put together their
You
own
get what you pay
courses
for.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they were good.
Yeah.
And that's why the students were happy, and why Kevin Smith happened, and
Yeah.
why the school was making money.
Yeah.
And this new management team went through and went, no, we're going to pay $35 an hour.
Right.
The program director can get $50 an hour, and I'm going.
Yeah.
So I had no contract. So they
Yeah.
offered us all contracts. They renamed all of the positions,
Right. Yes, of course. Yeah.
and then they could
Yeah.
put a new salary to it and that.
And then CAP came along.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing facility up there. I think we should sort of maybe give
Yeah.
CAP a bit of a plug.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened. I know some people donated a huge amount
Bill
of money.
Thumb.
Yeah, yeah.
Bill Thumb.
Bill Thumb.
Bill
yeah.
Thumb.
Yeah.
Bill Thumb had a dream of doing that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was like a bulldog
Yeah.
on a tire. He just,
Yeah.
I've
only visited there a couple of times. I remember once I came in to do one of the Crazy 8 shoots. They were using one of the stages for that.
Yeah.
And I remember walking down that basement thing where the studios are, and it's big, tall studio with the green screen, gigantic green
Studio
screen.
A.
Yeah, and there was all these DOPs from all over Vancouver
Yep.
taking the course in 3D.
Yep.
And I thought, whoa, I have never been to a school like that,
Yeah, no.
where, there's all this, and the wardrobe department, this incredible costume department down there, in wonderful facility,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh no, it was Bill Thumb's dream. Sound is running so that I can record sound. I will say speed. Then you can say roll camera.